Hi, you're listening to KUOI 89.3 FM. I'm Abigail Spencer, and today we're sitting down with
Madeline Hawthorne from Bozeman, Montana.
Excellent. So you are from Bozeman, but you grew up back east, right?
I did, yeah. I was born in Boston, moved to New Hampshire when I was a kid, and then I moved to Montana when I was 18.
Nice. What kind of went into moving to Montana?
Well, I met a boy, and I had a crush on him immediately, and he wanted to go out to Montana, and I actually did as well. I had gotten into the University of Montana in Missoula. I just wanted to get out of the East Coast, get out of my small town that I had grown up in, and I really needed something new, so I jumped in his car and followed him out west, and we're still together to this day. So
adorable.
Turns out, yeah, it was a good idea. Follow your heart, not your brain.
So your parents are both classically trained musicians, yeah?
That's right. Yep.
How does that? Because you now do a lot more like Americana, bluesy style.
Yeah.
How does that affect your music?
So I think I learned. My mom, along with being a classical performer, also taught voice at the University of New Hampshire. So what I think, especially now having been at this for over 10 years, is that my parents gave me a great foundation, and then I veered off and broke a lot of the rules, especially vocally, and I'm kind of coming back to the foundation at which I'm relearning, or maybe not relearning, but remembering how to use my instrument in such a way that won't damage my vocal cords and take care of myself. So, I'm very grateful to have had that foundation, to have learned that at a young age.
Yeah, so you moved to Montana from New Hampshire, of all places.
Tree folks to tree mountain folks.
Yeah. So what was kind of the biggest culture shock for you, especially moving into the music world in the West?
Yeah, well, so I moved to Bozeman, Montana to go to college at Montana State University, and I actually started pursuing a degree in sustainable food and bioenergy systems, and so I was working in food, nutrition, sort of organic food production, and that's where I started. Then I started going out to music shows in Bozeman, and that's what inspired me to start playing. So the East Coast, especially New England, has a really great, vibrant food scene.
Yes.
Farm to table in particular. And so that part of being in Bozeman, I felt a connection there. And there's a lot of similarities to the mountain folks in Bozeman to New Hampshire. So there's some culture shock, but I don't know. I've also been there for so long, it's hard to go back and think about what was shocking, because now it's just all a part of my life.
Sure. How do you think Montana changed your music and how you think about songwriting?
That's a great question. I have fallen in love with country music, and that is something that I found in Montana, and that has influenced my songwriting. I've discovered a lot of artists that I love, and then also the landscape, the space. I find a lot of quiet space and time when I'm in Montana, and that just allows a lot more inspiration to come to me when I'm not distracted by it.
Speaking of inspiration, I heard from a friend that you've recently finished the work on a yet-to-be-announced album.
Yeah, actually, we just announced it, so this is all brand new.
Brand new.
Yeah, we're releasing the album June 14th. It's called Tales from Late Nights and Long Drives.
Lovely. Anything you want to tell us about the album?
Yeah. I'm really excited about this album. I recorded it in Washington State at Bear Creek Studios. You know the studio?
Yes, I do.
Cool.
Oh, I wanted to ask, how was that working with the people at Bear Creek? They're so well known in the Americana scene. How was that? How did that affect, from coming in with the songs to what they ended up being on the album?
Yeah, it was an incredible experience. I stayed on property for 10 days, so I was fully immersed in this space. And if you know anything about the space, you know that legends have recorded there. So the place is full of all of these really funky knickknacks, like signed drum heads from bands that have played there before.
For our audience,
go ahead.
Firewalker's Daughter by Brandi Carlile was recorded there.
Yeah.
A lot of other just Americana and like bluegrass has been recorded in that studio.
The Lumineers recorded their first record there, which I listened to that record in the CD player of my old Subaru when I was in college, like nonstop. So that record, Brandi Carlile's records, Vance Joy and Zach Bryan, some of the more recent artists. But also there's Polaroid pictures of David Grohl in there. Like Soundgarden recorded there. The barn has been around since the 70s. Yeah. So the first generation, the parents started it and then passed it down to their son, Ryan Hadlock. And it's, that space is just... I think the spirits of all of the artists from the past are on that record. Yeah. I've stood in the same places that some of these artists stood to sing and to play. So I think I'll let the album speak for itself, and I'll just say, the spirit of Bear Creek is in it. I mean, Brandi Carlile called her other album Bear Creek. Yeah. So she did 2 albums, and the other one's Bear Creek. It's like, that place is magical. So.
Yeah. So, talking about when you were writing the album, what kind of other music were you listening to?
Great question. At that time, that was like still coming out of the pandemic. I feel like we're mostly out of it, but it's a process. Yeah. So let's see. At that time, I had played Chris Stapleton's album Traveler, which is a 2016 release, I think, but I played that non-stop, over and over and over again. I love that record. I think it's a masterpiece. A lot of Casey Musgraves at that time.
Have you listened to Deeper Well?
Oh, yeah. It is like, it's so good.
So good.
I listened to it while taking a bath. I was like, this is like a glass of Chardonnay. I was like, oh my God, Casey Musgraves. She's so good. Have you listened to it?
Yes.
Yeah.
I listened to it like the day it came out. I was like, I am setting aside time.
That's what I'm saying.
This is what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I ordered the picture album. It is in the mail.
I need to do that.
Yeah.
I love her when she announced that she had a new album coming out. Like, I don't always follow artists closely.
So we did a podcast, staff podcast, talking about the Grammys, and I went full conspiracy theorist mode. I was like, she's coming out with a new album. Yeah. And then literally the next day, it was formally announced. I was like, I knew it.
That album is spiritual.
So
too.
Good.
It's a special
so
one. Big
Casey
fan
Musgraves,
of hers.
Chris Stapleton.
Yeah, Patty Griffin released an album in the 90s called I'm thinking of the song One Big Love, but I'm sorry, the name of the record's escaping me right now, but I was listening to a lot of that, and that's powerful rock and roll Patty Griffin. It's super cool. So that's just some of them. I listen to all kinds of music all the time, but those were some. Oh, and I asked Nikki Lane. She had an album called Denim and Diamonds come out around that time, and I was listening to that a lot for inspiration, and I also used that as my baseline to compare my mixes, my levels, the mastering, and all of that was
Very cool.
Lots of stuff.
Well, thank you so much for showing up. If there's anything else you want to plug?
I don't think so. Stoked to be here at Treefort. Thanks for being.
Thanks so much for coming out.